Meet Mark and Diego. They're both 35 years old. They both earn about the same income. And if you looked at their bank accounts side by side today, you'd think their financial lives were nearly identical. They're not. And the reason why has nothing to do with luck. 10 years ago, when Mark was 25, he opened a brokerage account and started putting $100 a month into a low-cost index fund, a single fund that holds a small slice of hundreds of different companies at once. So one $100 contribution buys a tiny piece of a lot of businesses, not a bet on just one. Nothing dramatic. He just started because starting felt easier than waiting for a better moment that might never come. The first year wasn't exciting. Some months the $100 went in and the balance barely moved. A couple of months, a car repair or a tight paycheck meant it didn't go in at all. And Mark almost talked himself out of the whole thing more than once. But he kept coming back to it. Mostly, and that turned out to matter more than doing it perfectly. Diego, at 25, had a different instinct. He was 2 years into a new job, still paying off some student debt, and the idea of committing to anything monthly felt like one more obligation he wasn't ready for. He wanted to wait until he felt more settled, a steadier job, a clearer plan, enough saved up that $100 a month wouldn't feel like a stretch. It's a completely reasonable way to think. Diego just did what a lot of us do. He waited for ready. 10 years passed. Mark's account slowly stopped feeling like an experiment and started feeling like something real. And this year, at 35, Diego finally opened that account too. The exact same $100 a month into the exact same kind of index fund. Financially, in this one moment, they look almost the same. Same age, same monthly amount, same fund. But they are not on the same path. And the 10-year head start Mark has is about to matter more than either of them probably expects. Let's fast forward both of them to 65, using a 10% average annual return, the long-run historical average for the stock market. Mark, who started at 25, will have contributed $48,000 over those 40 years. His balance at 65? Around $632,000. Diego, who started at 35, will contribute $36,000 over his 30 years. His balance at 65? Around $226,000. Look at that gap for a second. Mark only contributed $12,000 more than Diego, one extra decade of $100 a month, but his final balance is over $400,000 higher. Not because Mark did anything smarter with his money, not because he picked better investments. The entire difference comes from one thing. Time. Those 10 extra years let compounding work on his contributions for a full decade longer. And in the back half of a long investing timeline, that decade does an enormous amount of the heavy lifting. Now, before this turns into a story about Diego losing, it isn't. Diego isn't behind because he made a bad decision. He made a normal one. Most people don't start investing the moment they turn 25. Waiting for stability, for clarity, for a plan that feels solid. That's not financial failure, that's just being human. And Diego has a real option here too. He can close part of the gap by contributing more later. Say Diego keeps his $100 a month for 10 years, and then at 45, once his income has grown, bumps it up to $200 a month for his remaining 20 years. That move brings his total balance at 65 up to around $302,000. A real improvement on $60,000 total contributed. But here's the honest part, the part a lot of videos skip. Even with that increase, even contributing $12,000 more than Mark did, Diego still ends up over $330,000 behind him. That's not a guilt trip, it's just what the math actually shows. Time in the market is a lever that money alone can't fully replace, no matter how much you increase your contribution later. A few things worth being upfront about, because two clean numbers can hide a lot of real life. First, neither of these men contributed with perfect consistency, and this math doesn't require that they did. A missed month here or there because of a tight stretch doesn't undo a decade of progress. What actually changes the outcome is stopping entirely, not pausing occasionally. Second, fees matter here too. A low-cost index fund versus a high-fee fund can be the difference between the numbers in this video and something noticeably smaller. For holding basically the same investments, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars apart over a long enough timeline. Third, Somewhere across each of their timelines, the market drops, sometimes sharply, sometimes more than once. That's not a flaw in the plan. That's just what markets do. The people who stay invested through those drops are the ones whose numbers end up looking like Marks and Diegos. The people who sell during them usually don't, and often lock in the loss right before the recovery that would have made it back. And finally, this is illustrative math, not personalized advice. Where the money actually goes, a Roth IRA, a 401k, a regular brokerage account, changes the real outcome. And that's worth figuring out for your own situation, rather than assuming one is automatically right. So who actually wins this story? Mark, on the numbers, clearly does. But Diego's story isn't a cautionary tale. It's just a different starting line. And the real lesson here isn't, you should have started 10 years ago. None of us can change that. The real lesson is about the next 10 years, not the last 10. If you're closer to Mark's story, the takeaway is simple. Keep going. Because that time you've already put in is doing more work than you probably realize. And stopping now would waste the exact advantage you spent a decade building. If you're closer to Diego's story, the takeaway is just as simple. The version of you at 45 will either be grateful you started today, or repeating this exact same story 10 years from now, having the same conversation with yourself about a different starting number. Here's the actual takeaway, in 3 moves, no matter which one you are. 1. Start with whatever amount you can actually sustain, even if it's smaller than $100. 2. Automate it, so it isn't a decision you have to make every single month. 3. If you're starting later, consider increasing the amount over time rather than trying to make up for lost time through timing or risk. Neither Mark nor Diego did anything complicated. One of them just started 10 years sooner. That's the whole story. If this helped make things click, subscribe. We're breaking down one confusing money topic every week in plain language with zero judgment attached.